They're tired of a prime minister who causes this recession and then does not have the courage or the decency to show up in the House of Commons and take ownership for what he's...
Carney has conceded to Donald Trump. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got new report out that Dominic LeBlanc thinks CUSMA is a good idea, needs to be extended another 16 years. This spills out into the halls of Parliament, into the House of Commons. Let's jump into this. Starting this episode off with this one from Blacklock's reporter. It says, skips Commons for a photo. So this talks about Mark Carney skipping question period for a 15-minute tour of a construction site in his Nepean, Ontario riding. They did this last minute so Carney wouldn't have to show up in the House of Commons. This is embarrassing. We have footage of it here, which has copyright music, which we have to turn off, but you can see he just showed up at this facility. They just quickly set this up so he wouldn't have to be grilled by Pierre Poilievre in the House of Commons. It's embarrassing. This is the Prime Minister, can't answer questions. We've got this one from the Wall Street Journal. Carney is steering Canada away from the US, but still wants its investors. Yeah, of course he does. He's trying to have it both ways. This isn't going to work out because clearly he wants to make America great again. I mean, I don't doubt that. He's 91% invested in America. We've also got nearly all Canadian universities fall in global rankings. Canada is tanking right now, and it's happening fast. We got this one from Bloomberg. US excludes Canada from trade talks with Mexico. That's not all, folks. We've got an 8-cent increase in gas prices expected across Toronto and the GTA on Wednesday, the largest single-day increase since early May. Is this elbows up? Now, Mark Carney in Parliament today could not get away from the question of recession. Finally, he gives an answer.
I'll say this about the economy, which is that we're in the process, this government's been in the process of laying the foundations for a stronger, more resilient, more independent Canadian economy.
So what you're seeing here, he knows his answer is hollow. So he keeps looking away from the reporter. This body language, he's done it twice. It's not like he's looking at, say, you guys here in the camera and then looking away kind of slightly to left or right and then looking back. He's looking away. His head is doing a full 90-degree turn. It tells a lot about him not wanting to answer this question, obviously.
That process is settling in during that time as we make major investments, major changes to how the government...
He just did it again. And he knows this is a wishy-washy answer. Oh, we're investing Canada strong and we're going through a bit of a change here.
And operates, how we do major projects, how we have new trade agreements with other countries. It's always difficult. Yeah, I should always remember to go up the stairs more slowly or get in better shape. As we do all that, the data is going to be uneven. And, we see some weakness, in part because of clear decisions by the government. So we have taken back control of immigration. That's meant the population growth has flattened. In fact, it's slowed, or it's been negative for the last 2 quarters. We have reined in government spending. So it had been growing close to 10%. It's growing less than 2% now. So
reined in government spending, $60 billion deficit. That's not reining in the spending. And I should note too, we're up to a counter of 6. 6 times he's turned his head 90 degrees away from the camera while answering this one question.
That's also something that weighs on. There's some other choppiness in terms of how investment is happening. But we're also seeing at the same time the foundations coming into place, settling in for that stronger, more resilient economy. So for example, if you look at business investment, particularly in machinery and equipment, in R&D, in intellectual property, that's actually up quite sharply in the last couple of quarters, including the most recent quarter.
So we're up to 8 now. Now, if we go back here, we mentioned business investment.
Particularly in machinery and equipment.
I don't know why he squints there. There's a bunch of reasons why. There could be something else on his mind here, a specific company, certain investments. There could be something in his eye. This is a hard one to read. It's just a little bizarre that he said that right as he said business investments and
economy. So for example, if you look at business investment, particularly in machinery and equipment, if you look at household incomes, there are now growing strongly. They continue to grow faster than the rate of inflation. There's more to be done without question, but they're moving in the right direction. So you have these cross currents as the economy is being fundamentally transformed. We're going to continue to work. We're making progress, but there's more to be done.
So he just turned his head again there. So 10 times he turned his head 90 degrees away from the camera because psychologically he doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to look the reporter in the eye and actually answer this question. He's just trying to mumble his way through it. And mainly his brain is just looking for an exit. He's literally looking at the exit because that's the hallway he's going to go down. So he just wants to get over there and get away from this reporter. This is pathetic. He's not a leader. On the flip side, we've got Pierre Poilievre here having a heyday with this, as he should be.
I think it's time for a new Canadian heritage moment. The Prime Minister has answered a question from reporters. So just to take a moment to acknowledge this historical time in our Canadian story. The Prime Minister has obviously been hiding from all of you since the devastating news that we were all saddened to learn on Friday that Canada was the only country in the G7 to have fallen into a recession. And of course, this is terrible news for the 112,000 people who've lost their jobs in the first 3 months of this year alone, for the many thousands of Canadians who are part of the 32% increase in delinquencies, mortgage delinquencies, the highest in nearly 2 decades, the 2.2 million people relying on food banks, a record-smashing number. Real people are suffering in a way that they're not suffering in the other G7 countries. And today, the Prime Minister wouldn't even answer your question. You asked him point blank, are we in a recession? And he refused to answer that question. 5 days have gone by. The Prime Minister has been in hiding from this devastating economic report. And when he does finally appear, he can't even answer a basic yes or no question. What he should have said is that, yes, we are in a recession. And yes, the single mothers who are having to turn back items at the checkout in grocery stores and then go to food banks that have also run out of food, they deserve a Prime Minister who will look them in the eye and say, admit that there is a recession. The young couple that's been working for 4 years, living in a 400 square foot apartment, can't afford a home, they deserve the Prime Minister to tell them the truth, that yes, he has caused them a recession. The father in Windsor who's gone home to tell his kids that he's lost his job, they're going to have to sell the home, there's not going to be any hockey or vacation this summer. They deserve to have a Prime Minister who tells the truth, that we are the only country in the G7 that is in a recession.
Donald Trump.
Instead of the Prime Minister, if I could, the Prime Minister.
You hear this? Donald Trump today, Donald Trump. We all know what that's going to be. Donald Trump said 51st state again. It just becomes this big media circus. We'll let Pierre finish here.
Instead, spread misinformation. He told all of you that investment has been up the last 2 quarters. Well, this is a quote directly from the StatsCan report. Business capital investment fell 0.7% in the first quarter of 2026, the 5th consecutive quarterly decline. And so the Prime Minister, once again, is failing the Canadian people by refusing to tell them the truth, that he caused a recession. It's the only recession in the G7, the only recession in North America. And he needs to rapidly reverse the liberal policies that caused that recession.
And that's not going to happen. So they're going to ask him about Donald Trump. So just for context, you can see Ambassador Pete Hoekstra posting Donald Trump's tweet here, or whatever this is called, truth or whatever. Trump replying to this Bloomberg article, Canada dips into technical recession for the first time since 2020, 51st state. And now the media is just running crazy with this. He's already said he's not serious about this. Obviously just trolling again, but here we are.
Donald Trump once again saying they're the 51st state. What is your comment to Donald Trump using the recession to now once again joke, I guess, about Canada being the 51st state?
Right, it's ridiculous, and it's never going to happen. And we have to make sure that we don't allow ridiculous comments like that to distract us from the very real suffering that Canadians are experiencing as a result of liberal policies here at home. The families who can't afford food, the 1 in 4 Canadians who are living in food insecurity. They don't want us to be distracted by a foolish comment like that. They want us to focus on reversing the liberal policies that have made them hungry in the first place.
Now, we've got a lot going on with America. We've got Brian Lilly posting this. This morning, Pete Hoekstra used his official account to push the 51st state idea. He's downplayed this in the past. Now he's pushing it. If this is what he believes, perhaps it's time for Carney government to ask him to leave. With Donald Trump's 51st state comment, Pete Hoekstra pushing it out. Hours later, what do we have? Coming from the BBC, it says Canada formally requests 16-year renewal of North American Free Trade Pact. They've been pushing this elbows up nonsense. Melissa's got a great example here. Carney says Canada's U.S. ties have become weakness that must be corrected. This is back April 19th, 2026. We're talking like just over a month ago. And then just from today, Canada tells U.S. Mexico it wants CUSMA renewed. You can't have it both ways. You can't fearmonger and then say, oh, I want to get a deal now that the recession has hit. So back to this article, Canada's formally requested a renewal of the North American Free Trade Agreement with the U.S. and Mexico called CUSMA as July deadline to renegotiate. The pact looms. In Tuesday's notice, Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc requested the deal be renewed for another 16 years, calling the agreement highly beneficial to all three countries. It comes as LeBlanc is in Washington to meet U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. Greer concluded the last round of formal bilateral talks with Mexico this week, but on and off again, negotiations with Canada have lagged behind. So Mexico's completed their first full round of negotiations. I believe they have 2 more in the upcoming months, and Canada hasn't even started. It says here, in a notice, LeBlanc argued that the USMCA, known as CUSMA in Canada, gives North American countries a competitive global advantage. Oh, now it's an advantage. It's not elbows up America's evil. He added that Canada recognizes that there are areas of the pact that can be improved, but adding that the country is willing to consider any proposal that can be beneficial to all three nations' long-term prosperity. Look at this. Elbows down, knees down. Just begging now. This is so pathetic.
But I would say this, given the fact that the United States and Mexico have concluded first round, given the fact that Ambassador Hoekstra commented today on a CRTC decision, given the fact how we know people feel about C-22 from the United States, I think our friend Minister LeBlanc is heading into a wood chipper in Washington, and they are just going to lay out exactly what's been agreed to by Mexico and the expectations on Canada to acquiesce. I don't know how this is going to go any other way.
They're just groveling at this point and not even using our leverage. Meanwhile, we've got nonsense like this coming from Bruce Arthur, who is a Toronto Star columnist, saying, glad Canada's Conservatives spent yesterday hammering the Liberal recession, blaming Donald Trump tweeting on it because of Conservatives in Canada. Just unreal. We shouldn't be talking about a problem that the Liberals have caused because Donald Trump might tweet about it? This is pathetic. Somebody at a publication thinks that's an acceptable statement. Jumping over to the House of Commons, Mark Carney didn't show up for work today, too terrified to answer questions as usual.
Mr. Speaker, the question is for the Prime Minister. We don't need more excuses. He's delivered the only recession in the G7. Mexico is not in recession. They are just as integrated with the United States and share a border with that country. So the Prime Minister finally emerged to take media questions on his recession today, and he blamed it on the fact that immigration, he claims, is not high enough and that per capita GDP is actually not so bad. Only problem is, in the last year, per capita GDP has only grown by 0.2%.
Oh, wow.
0.2%. Does he really expect a parade for 0.2%?
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians understand, all Canadians understand except for the Leader of the Opposition, that we have the most integrated economy in the world with the Americans. They understand our economy continues to show resilience in the face of illegal and unjustified tariffs. They understand we are facing 2 global economy-destroying wars. What Canadians want is us to work to build, not to talk down Canada.
How are we facing 2 economy-destroying conflicts when we're not in any of those conflicts? Like, come on. We sell oil, which benefits from this conflict. Back when Stephen Harper was in power, oil went over $100 a barrel, but the difference was the Canadian dollar was strong. It was tied to the oil and gas industry. Thus, we didn't have this huge price hike at the pumps. But now we have a weak economy, so we're not insulated to this, and the prices are out of control.
That's why we're building nuclear. That's why we're building transmission. That's why we're building ports. That's why we're building roads. We could keep going. They should stop talking us down.
I don't even understand him talking about nuclear. I mean, it was already being built before they got in. They haven't announced new projects here. America has announced $90 billion of nuclear projects.
They're building a recession and they're building excuses, Mr. Speaker.
That's right.
The fact is, all other G7 countries face tariffs and global wars. Mexico is just as, if not more, integrated with the United States, and none of those other countries are in a recession. Only this Liberal Prime Minister has delivered that. After 5 days, he finally emerged to talk to the media after hiding from answering questions and blamed the recession on the fact that he says that immigration is not high enough. Mr. Speaker, per capita GDP is 0.2% increase. Why the failure?
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition has some kind of phony and artificial narrative. I don't know where he's drawing this from. He picks up pieces of information, he tries to weave it together. You know what's interesting, Mr. Speaker? He has no plan. He has nothing to say. The last time he had a plan, he told Canadians to go invest in cryptocurrency.
Yeah, and they would have got stinking rich if they did that. I've already done this calculation 3 or 4 times on the channel. They would get stinking rich if they invested when Poilievre said to go buy Bitcoin. Now, going back to this statement.
You know what's interesting, Mr. Speaker? He has no plan.
Last I checked, he went and met with business leaders and delivered a plan for the auto pact. He met with executives. He had a plan for dealing with America. What's Carney's plan? He has no plan. This is projecting once again. Carney has no plan aside from don't deal with America at all and just have the thing crash and burn.
Invest in cryptocurrency. For God's sake. Yeah, look at it exactly. Let's take a look at where that's at, Mr. Speaker. So why doesn't he get up and give us a real plan instead of running down this incredible country? Build this country forward. Build it up.
Okay, well, we're doing it again because McGuinty wants us to check the cryptocurrency. Going back to November 17th, 2022, CBC put out this article, as crypto chaos continues, Liberals remind voters of Poilievre's praise for Bitcoin. So he didn't announce this on November 17th. This article is scolding him because Bitcoin had dropped since he announced it. We can see here the price of Bitcoin is a fraction of what it was when Poilievre announced in March his plan to make Canada the Bitcoin capital of the world. So March of 2022, here's the price of Bitcoin. If we go back to March of 2022, which is right here, February, March, so roughly around $46,000. I believe this is in US dollars. So then the article comes out in November down here. So that's why they're criticizing. You can see where it's gone. And it doesn't matter which area you pick to sell it. Even right now, the prices are dropping. It's at $69,000. If you bought it for $46,000 when Poilievre said this is something to invest in and you sell it today for $69,000, what percent of increase is that, McGuinty? That's a 50% return on your money. 50%, and that's right now at its lowest in the past couple of years here. If you sold it up at $111,000, why do these Liberals make comments like this? It's so easily fact-checked.
Speaker, the question was for the Liberal Prime Minister. This Prime Minister said, experience shows that when an economy enters recession, the poorest are hit the hardest. And the lower skilled, lower paid people tend to lose their jobs first. And recessions disproportionately affect young. Graduating in a recession is generally bad news for someone's earnings. In the extreme, prolonged recessions, they can lead to permanent labor market scarring with potentially devastating effects on livelihoods, identities, and communities. This is people's lives. This Prime Minister caused this painful recession. Will he show up, stand up, and own up?
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Do you know what Canadians are excited about? Canadians are excited about building up this country, building Canada strong, whether it's things like a new NORAD base, whether it's things like a new wind project or mining projects. And
oh, great. Another wind project that can enrich Mark Carney's Brookfield Global Transition Fund 1, or another mining project that enriches Mark Carney's Brookfield Global Transition Fund 1, or a new NORAD base. All this stuff points towards Brookfield. I'm not sure when the strategy changed to make defense procurement or if that was it from the start, but it's very clear that Carney's going to tie in his former employer there with the government here pretty quick regarding defense procurement. That's why I brought in Doug Guzman to be his right-hand man on it.
Yes, Canadian workers are tired, Mr. Speaker. They're tired of working 6 days a week and not able to afford their rent. They're tired of showing up at the grocery store and having to hand products back at the checkout because they can't afford to pay them. They're tired of making their way over to the food bank and finding that the food bank is empty. They're tired of a Prime Minister who causes this recession and then does not have the courage or the decency to show up in the House of Commons and take ownership for what he's...
Yeah, well said. They're tired of a prime minister that spends 195 euros or like 250 bucks Canadian dollars on a Mediterranean salad during a flight, or 135 euros, $180 Canadian on creme brulee. Who spends 180 bucks on a dessert? Are you kidding me? That's what they're spending our money on. Chicken breast meal, 220 euros. That's $353 for a chicken breast meal. One meal. That's not meals for all of them. That is one meal. This appalling waste of money must end. It's just absolutely insane that they would spend this kind of money. I mean, even the cheapest one on here, 27 euros. So it's like 45 bucks for a dessert for pilot. The pilot gets the cheapest thing on the menu. Dishwashing and trash, 850 euros. What is that? $1,300 Canadian to throw out the trash? How about 1 liter of chocolate milk? 54 euros. That's $86.85 for 1 liter of chocolate milk. Okay, we've had enough of this. The Conservatives are shaking the house down here.
You know, I was expecting that on the last question, because then I couldn't remove a question from the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, last year Canadian exports to non-U.S. markets grew by more than 17%. Canada is the fastest growing economy, secondly speaking, in the G7 this year and next. And in the first 4 months of this year alone, we secured more than $10 billion in commercial deals for Canadian businesses. Speaking.
Oh yeah, 10 billion secured. When we've got comments like this saying, I've got 75,000 square feet of empty warehouse retail space in my business park, this wasn't caused by tariffs. It's a decade-long Liberal government that consistently fail with every monetary and fiscal policy. Ending this episode off on a lighter note, we got Poilievre posting another one of these comparison videos. I don't think these are going anywhere anytime soon because Carney flip-flops so much.
We will build a new Canadian economy, the strongest economy in the G7. We will build Canada strong.
Prime Minister, can you comment on the claims about a recession
I think
and the economy? Sir?
This guy's not a serious prime minister. Who did Canadians elect?